The best leaders that we are inspired by, that we love and want to be like, it's because of their ability to have differentiated themselves amongst all of those out there.
Welcome to the Bulletproof Cash Flow Podcast. Let's get into the show.
Hey everyone, this is Agostino. If you've been following the show for a while, you know that building a personal brand is one of the first things you need to do to raise the capital you need to get deals done. Now, this is important because, in the words of our next guest, if you don't give the market the story to talk about, they'll define a brand story for you. And this is something that you need to be in control of. Now, today's guest understands all this. Now, he knows that you and your brand are a revolution waiting to happen. Now, through his company, DBD International, he and his team build the tools to get your brand seen, heard, positioned for success as well. Now, he's the best-selling author of the best-selling book, Brand Intervention, and Google's #1 rated rebranding expert, building brands with over 4 decades of expertise. Now, he's not only received over 320 international awards, he has the rare honor of being presented the Presidential Ambassador for Global Entrepreneurship medallion. Now, he was also called brilliant by Shark Tank's Daymond and a branding genius by Grant Cardone. Now, additionally, he's been featured in all kinds of publications, including ADWEEK, Fast Company, Forbes, Inc., Huffington Post, Entrepreneur, the list goes on. And he's been on numerous other publications and podcasts as well. Now, with all that, I'd like to welcome David Brier to the show. David, thanks for coming on, bud.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Excellent. Now, guys, if you like what David has to say, you can reach him via his contact page at risingabovethenoise.com. Okay, David, you got over 30 years of experience in the business. You've had quite a career. What sort of, how'd you get started? Now, how did it all begin?
Well, I'm a native New Yorker. For those that don't know me, I'm a native New Yorker, Brooklyn kid, born in Brooklyn, raised in Queens, spent a little bit of time on Long Island, and then started my career, moved out and started my career in Manhattan. And so in the Upper West Side and Gramercy Park, and those are my stomping grounds, man.
Nice. I was I spent a lot of time in Queens in Astoria. It takes a very different type of grit to live in a place like that.
Yep. Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Yeah. So now, what is branding, and why should people care about it?
Okay. Well, so to understand what is branding, let me first dispel what it isn't, because oftentimes when we talk about brand, people go, "Oh, yeah, I got a logo." That's like saying, "Do you have a car?" "Yeah, I got a steering wheel." Okay. That's about how incomplete that is as a concept. So with that being basically laid to rest, the thing that you understand is this. Right now, every day, you and me, we have something to pitch into the world. We're not the only ones pitching. There's a hell of a lot of noise out there. So the problem that we have to address is, how are we going to introduce something so it doesn't just add to the noise, but actually rises above the noise? That's what branding does. And what it comes down to, about 5 years ago, I was curious. I opened up Amazon in the little search box, typed in branding, and looked under books. I was curious how many books. This is about maybe 6 years ago. And so at the time, there were 6,500 books. Then a few years later, and that's books on branding, okay? This is not 500. It's not 1,000. This is not 3,000. This is 6,500 on this one thing of branding, not branding and marketing and advertising. No, branding, okay? I was like, holy shit. So then a few years later, I looked, and it was 10,000. And if you were to go today, it's well over 20. And here's the thing. Let's say you and I decided, hey, you know what? We're gonna read 2 books a day, just to we want to learn everything there is to learn. It would take us over 24.6 years to finish every one of the books that exist today on branding. So I decided, one thing I know from being in business this is my 41st year of being in business, that you need to, if there is a lot of opinions in a particular area, that there's basically a missing fundamental. And here's what everybody was overlooking. Can we agree on one particular definition with regard to branding? And the answer was, yeah, they all touched upon little things, and some of them were workable and usable, this, that, the other, But the bottom line is that there was not one single agreed upon definition. So I developed that when I wrote Brand Intervention. And that comes down to 4 words, not 24.6 freaking years. I don't know about you. I value my time. Okay. I don't want to take a quarter of a freaking century to learn a topic. Okay. When it's changing, weekly, if not monthly. And so the thing is the art of differentiation. And if you understand that as the core fundamental of branding, the best leaders that we are inspired by, that we love and want to be like, it's because of their ability to have differentiated themselves amongst all of those out there. Or the great athletes, they managed to really refine their game in a way that was differentiated. They didn't blend into all the others. Or a great actor, or a great filmmaker, or a great author, or a great salesperson, whatever. The art of differentiation is, if you know that to your core and you know how to navigate that, nothing can stop you.
Excellent. Yeah. I mean, and I think part of it is that differentiation needs to be delivered fairly quickly as well, right? I mean, because if, how should I put it? When they hear your name, when they see something related to you, they instantly, the person gets emotional, and they think something good, bad, or indifferent about you as an individual, right? And you want to try to push them into a positive way, and that's what brand is too, right?
Yeah. Well, look. There's a truckload of thought leaders out there, but there's only one Gary V. Or there's an enormous amount of people in the sales space, but there's only one Grant Cardone. Or there's a ton of shows that try and be like good reality TV shows having to do with business, this, that, the other, but there's only one Shark Tank, right? And so the thing is like, what is the thing? What's the thing that's going to allow you, when you show up as a brand, whether you're delivering a product or a service, what's going to allow you to walk in and people go, holy shit, my world's just changed. Now whenever I think of XYZ, whatever that product or service is, they now think of you. How are you going to control that dialogue? Because if you do not define it, as you said in the beginning, if you don't tell them the story to talk about, they'll define your brand story for you. So our failure to actually own the dialogue leaves us vulnerable to being, you can ask 10 people and you're going to hear 10 different viewpoints of what your brand is. And that's a lousy, very weak place to be in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that they're the key to the thing to realize is that once you brand properly and you're able to pull them in, and your messaging needs to be consistent with what the brand is, of course. And I think more importantly than that, when that person down the road thinks about real estate, for instance, you need to be the first one they think about. That's the same way people think about 10X. People immediately think about Grant Cardone because he's Mr. 10X. He's branded himself at 10X. Like now, nobody else can say the 10X in any of their business pitches without thinking about Grant Cardone. That's how much he's cornered that I guess that terminology, right? And I think that's probably the biggest thing for many, especially new investors out there, right? Is that how do they convince somebody that that person, that potential investor needs to be investing with them? I mean, that's branding, right?
Completely. I mean, but part of it is this: people need to know the difference between branding and marketing and sales, and they don't. See, sales doesn't plant the seed of branding, right? If you walk in, when sales isn't the thing that sets it up. So when you walk into a room, people are like, okay, this son of a bitch is the badass. This son of a bitch is the authority. This guy's the expert. This guy or gal, whatever. It's like, they're the one. They're it, right? It's like, does sales do that? No. Branding is what does that. Marketing is what gets that out. The job of marketing is to execute. If you don't have a brand, marketing is basically pulling shit out of its ass and hoping for the best. Right? Okay, let's come up with this sale. Let's offer this at in this price point, or this or this percentage point. They're trying to figure out to move stuff, and then sales is there to basically harvest it, right? Basically say, okay, bam, let's do this. Let's conclude the transaction. And if you're really a damn good salesman, let's start the beginning of our relationship. That freaking transaction is not the conclusion of the activity. It's just like, okay, boom, it's a milestone. Good. We've decided to do business together. We've transacted. Okay, good. It is the beginning of our relationship. What is going to be the actual value of that over the lifespan of that customer? How are you going to consistently provide value that they are happy to pay you money for?
And I think that's one of the things that we cover, especially in our coaching programs, is that your brand, it's more than just a website. It's more than the little logo on your business card. It describes what you're about, who you are, right? And I mean, that's one of those things that it could be tricky and elusive for many people, right? So now, what sort of steps would you define for someone like that? If they were listening in right now, what sort of thing would you help them go through to actually build a brand identity?
Perfect question. So here's the deal. First thing is I say, okay, let me ask you. I always ask. Well, here, let's do it this way. All right. So Agostino, let me ask you. So do you have a competitive space that you're in? Do you have a lot of competitors?
Oh yeah, a lot of competitors.
Good. Okay. So that immediately tells you and me both. We now know that there is noise out there. Okay. There are those who are now. So what we know already, being in business, is there are going to be those who are going to be saying probably a lot of the similar things to what you're saying. We're the best. We're the most knowledgeable. We'll get you the best deals. We'll get you the smartest deals. Right? Blah, 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 blah. How the hell are you, against all of that backdrop of noise, going to not merely echo what everybody else is saying? Right? So first thing is we got to get a real bead, take inventory. What's the amount of noise? In your space, it's very noisy. A lot of business is very noisy. So we go, okay, good. We then have to take inventory of what are all the common reasons why all of those in the space are saying, well, you need to do business with us because we're the largest, we're the biggest, we've been doing this the longest, we have more properties, we represent X amount of in terms of assets. They're all saying blah 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 blah, claim. Good. What are we doing that is now actually different? What transformation are we making possible right now that no one is actually owning? Prior to Grant Cardone with 10X, there were others who were talking about increasing their efficiency, increasing their impact, increasing their ability to sell, increasing their ability to have influence and leadership and thought leadership in the world and execute and hustle smarter, blah, 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 blah. But he happened to package it better, smarter, the 10X rule, great title, and he paid attention to the fact that it was getting traction and people, it was short, 3 freaking words, the 10X rule, right? Succinct. How can you forget that unless you're freaking, out of it? So that's an example of, we start from there. We look at the noise and then we find out what's the difference. Like there are spaces, like you go to LinkedIn, you see there's thousands upon thousands of LinkedIn experts, right? Or personal branding experts, et cetera, et cetera. It's like, my God, if I was in that space, I would never call myself that because I would immediately sound like everybody else. Yeah. The last thing I want to do is sound like everybody else, because the opposite end of the spectrum of differentiation is me too, is cliches, is like sounding like everybody else, blending in. That's the opposite. That is a horrendous place to start if you're interested in growing, closing deals, because your value is not clear. If you sound like everybody else, people are always going to say, well, why should we be doing business with you? Someone could come in and undermine the whole deal because you didn't have that differentiation. You didn't have that clarity of why you and not everyone else. So that's the starting point when it comes to that kind of discussion.
Yeah, I think the one elusive part I would say is that, at least in this space anyway, in the multifamily space, everybody and their mother seems to be in the multifamily space now, right? Everyone claims that, the reasons why I want to get into multifamily, depreciating assets, legacy, yada, yada, yada. It is the same stuff. Just like you said, everybody says the same stuff because there's only a finite amount of benefits there are when you're doing real estate. I mean, they're good. They're very good benefits. I think the issue though is that you have to try to get these people to come around and join your tribe. And that can be somewhat tough. Unless you package your message properly, the way you mentioned earlier about Grant. Right.
Well, the one thing, for example, there are 3 phases to branding that I talk about. I talk about it in Brand Intervention, and I go very deeply into it in my Brand Intervention Masterclass. But not only are there 3 phases to branding, of which the 3rd is the most powerful one and the one least used by companies. But in addition to that, there's 23 key differentiators that I actually cover in my masterclass, in particular. For each of the phases, not just one, each, There's 69 in total that you could be using, of which probably most companies are using 3, maybe 4.
Wow.
So when you start to understand the ways that you can differentiate, there's no shortage of ways that you can differentiate, but most don't have the imagination or ingenuity to know where to look. And so that's where you have to. It really helps to have impartial eyes. I practice what I call passionate impartiality. I care enough to really give a damn, and I'm also going to be the guy that says when a client of mine is going, they're looking at their thing that they've created, their business, and they're like, "Oh, isn't my baby beautiful?" Their baby being their business, isn't their baby? I'm like, "Yeah, it's not the prettiest one I ever saw." Nah.
Yeah, then you sound like a complete jerk, right?
Yeah. Well, they love the candor because all of a sudden they're like, "Oh my God," and they're like, "Well, why would you say that?" I said, "Well, I've heard this 1,000 times before. I've seen this 1,500 times prior to this moment right now.
Right.
Why does yours matter?" Well, because then you get all the usual crap, the usual suspects. And I said, and I would tell that my usual response is very simple. I say, why do I know with the 15 reasons you've told me I should do business with you right now, if I were to go to one of your competitors, that they would not be telling me pretty much the same thing as you? Would you agree? And then when you ask them, then they go, "Oh shit, I guess they would." See, they were so intoxicated with their own passion that blinded them to the practical. Like, let's look at this, man. It's not that what you're saying is untrue. It's that it doesn't stand out. It has no chance to breathe. There's no oxygen left in the room for it to survive or take its next breath because it sounds like everything else.
Yep. And that's the thing. Even if your deal is better, even if your deals are better, you have better management, you have better steps in how you handle stuff when it comes to operations, for instance, or even the deal itself, acquisition side. If your branding is off, you'll never even have an opportunity to get in front of that investor, and that's huge.
Correct. Huge. To me, that is the ultimate crime that any entrepreneur can commit on their own business.
Yeah.
You're telling me you took the time and the money to invest into this, and you've spent a year, 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years perfecting this. You have the baddest ass thing that anybody could possibly want, and you're going to now shortchange it and not actually make sure that when you talk about it, it is immediately and instantly clear how this is different, not like everyone else, how it's disrupting the norm and upsetting the status quo of bullshit that already exists. If you are not coming in with that level of commitment, conviction, and ferocity, then you should not be in business.
Yeah,
that's what I tell people.
And those are bold words. Those are bold words, man.
It's the only way to make it. You've got to.
It's true, though. It's true.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I mean, I've been at this for a while now too, and I mean, it's hard. It's especially hard when you're starting out. It's difficult because it's all on you. You have to come up with everything. But the good thing is that there is material out there, like your book. Brand interventions out there. Yeah, it sounds like you have a course as well that comes along with it. That helps those individuals really flesh out what that branding message needs to be. Because if you don't have that, you're going to have a very tough time competing with other guys that may be more experienced than you are. They have access to better deals. Maybe their pitch is better, and you're none the wiser because you have no idea.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I'll give you a perfect, very, very practical example. Very practical. There was one guy who went through my masterclass. Then after we were done, he goes, "David, I need you on my team. I got to hire you to just handle our whole thing." It's like this. I mean, oh my God, right? Blown away. Good. We jump in. We do exactly what I just described. We look at the competition. We look at what they're all saying in a very, very unsexy industry. It's not like ooh, no, very unsexy. But a lot of money is spent by large corporations to hire these services, to hire companies that provide these services. Good. So we look at what they're all saying. They're all they're all making the same mistakes, all on top of each other. So we look at it and I say, "Hey, Skylar is his name. Skylar's the CEO." I said, "Skylar, I want you to use these 3 words over the next few days. Just use them casually in your discussions as you're talking to prospects and customers and stuff like that. Let's talk in 3 days. Don't showcase it. Don't go, hey, what do you think? No, just mention it just in passing. Just after 3 days, he calls me up. He goes, David, first of all, sales calls that used to be 10 minutes now have gone into 45 minutes because people want to know more. He goes, we just closed, and then I think he closed that week about $200,000 worth of new business just based on those 3 words. The next week he closed about $750,000 of new business just based on using those 3 words. So we created a brand new category. All his other guys, and we secured the domain and everything like that. So the bottom line is we blocked out, we preempted. No one can even gain entrance into this space without it immediately companies thinking of his company. So I mean, at this point now he's generated over $2.3 million since we started this. We haven't finished the rebrand yet. This is just him in talking with people. 3 words.
What are the 3 words? What are they?
I'd have to explain the industry and the stuff like that. Just trust me. 3 words that I'll tell you what they connect to, because without context, I don't want to take the time to explain, because it'll just, there's many other things I know you want to talk about. Just trust me in the factor of this. It is built around the transformation that he makes possible. And everyone else in his industry is talking about, people say, hey, we need blah, 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 blah. And it's like, basically they're answering, what do they do? Yeah. That's like me. It's like me saying, it's like the difference between, I like saying I'm an actor or I entertain people. Which one's going to interest you? I'm an actor or I entertain people? I'd be more interested in I entertain people, because now I know it's like, oh, there's the outcome. I get it. That's for me. Right. Yeah. So it's just that kind of nuance. But
it kind of sounds like the whole with him, what's in it for me? And I tell people this all the time. It's like, I will listen to what some of our students when they're first starting out, that haven't trained them yet. I'm just listening in on some of the conversations they're having at some of our networking events. And it's always about me, self-centered. It's all about me. Yeah. And that individual listening to you doesn't really care about you.
No.
Your mother might care about you. Your parents might care about you. Your family, maybe. But if you're talking to a prospect, they really don't care. It's all about what's in it for me. And I think that what you just said was spot on, because you have to basically say through those 3 words, you're able to convey to that person, that prospect in that line, how's my life going to transform? You're going to look great for your boss. You're going to be able to retire in Fiji. You're going to be able to take that trip to Monaco. You're going to be able to do whatever it is that you want to do if you take these steps right here. And I'm going to line them all up for you. And it's very, very simple to get into. I mean, it's kind of like defining what the steps are and then showing them what life looks like afterwards. And it's funny. It seems logical, but many people, that's where they drop the ball. That's where they drop the ball, right there.
Totally. No, they're a little too frantic, and they think that they've got to start out talking about themselves. And the way I tell any of the clients that I work with, or students that I train, I basically say, look, the path to your customer's front door starts at their front door, with the problems that they're aware of, with the aspirations that they want, with the objectives that they are passionate about. The conversation, and that does not start at your front door talking about all the stuff that you think matters. No, that pathway to their front door starts at their front door, and then it eventually leads to yours if you do it right.
Yeah, that's right. And I mean, we just went through a very quick and dirty case study. Now, in your case, you've been at this for a while. Okay, so you're talking, you got 40 years of experience backing you up. Now, one thing when I was doing the background check on you and learning a little bit more about what you did early on, you landed some pretty big clients, right? I mean, they're pretty sizable. So how were you able to do that early on from that position when you were first starting out? Like, how were you able to did you follow the same sort of steps, or like, how'd you do it?
No. I didn't follow the same steps, because the thing is that I'd say it was growing in New York, that survival instinct that you have when you grow up in a city like New York. I would say it's a combination of moxie, blind ambition, and thinking I'm like the baddest ass guy to, come down the pike, that just complete insular, myopic kind of like, thing of just believing in oneself and just having some hustle. That was how that went, but it was not. I mean, now it's definitely a different. There's no question. I'm much more mature. I know how to frame the conversations. I know what to talk about. I know what to ignore. I know the BS that I don't fall for, and I know when to say. And I'm also now I'm willing to walk away from a deal. Then I was like, if I get my fangs early on, if I got my fangs into you, I wasn't letting go. It's like,
well, it's because you don't have a pipeline, right? If you're only biting down on a deal because if you have no pipeline, you have to have this deal. Otherwise, you're screwed.
You start out, and it's like, it's like feast or famine, man. It's like there's no in between.
Yeah, that's right. And that's the thing. You want to have a pipeline filled up with deals. You want to have a pipeline filled up with investors. You don't want to have to rely on only one thing. And I think that's a mistake that many people make too, is that they think they can wing it and get by, and that's you can certainly try. People have done it. You might be successful, but I think that many people don't understand. I just celebrated a birthday here recently. It comes abundantly clear, the older you get anyway, is that we're running out of time. And the one thing you have to do, in my opinion anyway, is try to condense time. And you do that by taking on other information other people have lived through already. Like, you've already lived through all this stuff. You've made all the mistakes. Why should I go make all the same mistakes if you've already done it and you have a better way to show me how and take a shortcut and save that time?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably what many people need to be doing, especially when it comes to this specific part of branding. It's just absolutely huge. It's absolutely huge.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And the one thing I'll say, it's just a pet peeve of mine, just from the standpoint of branding. I'll give you an example. One of the stupid things that people do just because, quote unquote, it's always been done. Yeah. Is like I love like and I don't know if this falls into your, because I know that you deal with real estate, but like, for example, when you're dealing with realtors, I love when the realtor gives you their card and they always have their little photograph on the thing, and it's like and I always have asked myself, why the freaking hell does anybody ever do that? I have never chosen or to work with or not work with a realtor based on the little ridiculous headshot that's on their stupid business card. Who came up with that moronic thing? I want to find that person. I want to sit them down and say, you ruined an industry. How do you feel about that?
I don't know what, and I honestly don't know why they do that either. I think I heard about this before. I think it's because there's so many realtors in the space that you kind of have to put a face with a name or something.
That's their differentiator. So it's like, you're going to choose me on my hairstyle? You're going to choose me on the jacket that I decided to wear or the tie that I decided to wear in that shot? Are you kidding? And those shots are all stupid. They don't even say anything. If it was a great shot, if it was like, okay, show me grilling or entertaining people or at a coffee place or something. Show me with some, but they're always stupid, horrible, unnatural, and just, I want to punch the person whose face is on that card. That's all I want to do.
That's pretty aggressive, man.
Well, I figured I would just lean in from a New York viewpoint.
There we go. Hey, listen, I spent a lot of time in New York, as I said earlier, in the green room. So yeah, I know all about that, man. So yeah, but it's funny. I think nowadays what many people are doing is they're leveraging social media, especially the ladies. Like I noticed that many young women are using social media to promote the deals that they're working on and all that.
Especially if you're dealing in Miami or someplace really, like very cultural, lifestyle-y kind of backdrop. Absolutely, no question.
Yeah. So to button things up here now, why is it important for someone, especially someone starting out, to control their message when they are speaking to a potential investor on a deal?
Well, the bottom line is realize none of us live in a vacuum. Okay, there's two parts to this whole equation. One is if you're speaking to someone, maybe they're interviewing 3, 5, or 7 of your competitors, and if you do not actually figure out how you're going to be differentiated properly, you will sound like all the rest. And then you know what's going to happen? The worst thing in the world. They're going to choose you based on price or percentage points. And that is the lousiest relationship to have, because your value, there is no value. People who shop at Walmart don't shop at Walmart because they're loyal to Walmart. What they're loyal to is the low price. So if another store comes along and offers it for less, do you know where those Walmart shoppers are going to go to? That store that's offering it for less. So there's no loyalty to the Walmart brand. There's loyalty to the low price. You do not want to be in that position. That's a very weak position. And then the other thing is this. Every industry has baggage. And what I mean by that is this. If I were to say, hey, all right, Agostino, I'm a lawyer. I wouldn't have to say anything else. If I just said I'm a lawyer, you'd go, okay, this guy's probably not the most fun guy to hang with. If he ever invites me out for drinks after work, I'm going to find something else to do instead. I'm going to have an excuse. He's probably not going to be able to make things short and brief. He'll not get to the point. Everything's going to be, if it could be a paragraph, it's going to be 5 pages. And he's going to nickel and dime me for every 15 minutes of my time. All of that is the baggage of the industry. So the thing is if you are not owning your freaking story and your narrative, you will be defined by the industry you're in. And if you're like, hey, I deal in multi-house units or multi-family units. Bang. You're telling me that there's not already associations that people have with people in the multi-family unit space, especially if they've had some experience with less desirable ones. All of a sudden, you now have all of that debris that they've brought to the conversation because you've associated yourself with that industry. That's a failure to own your narrative, to own your story, to own your brand, and to own your category. Why not reinvent the category? So those are the dynamics that go into the importance. Why it's not like a nice thing to do. It is vital if you want to freaking own it and actually dominate proactively.
And you know what, though, in thinking about that, the way you can overcome that, especially the baggage part of it, is to really find out what the other side is thinking about it, right? Like, so what are some of the pet peeves that investors have? What irritates them? Maybe they don't get updates on time. Maybe they're not getting paid on their deals like the way they said, the way that they were supposed to. Maybe there's the quality of the deals are not so good. If you're able to address that up front and close that gap, it helps reduce some of that baggage. And I think sounds to me like if you're able to do that, it sort of sets you apart from all the other guys, because the other guys aren't doing it that way.
It can certainly help. I mean, I did that for a PR agency. We found out that in rebranding them, that big corporations, they hate PR companies, which shocked me. They don't like them because they do a lot of smoke and mirrors. They do, they lock you in for a 12-month contract. And then, 3 months down the road, it's like, oh, we're still doing our homework. Oh, and then they maybe get you one placement. And then, then they keep feeding you it. When you start getting hungry, then they throw you a little bit of a bone to satiate you. And they underperform for the year. And I didn't realize, but you would think that the PR firms would pride themselves in having good PR. They actually have lousy PR. So, and when I found that out, and when I found out what my client did differently, my client, here's a very, very good example of an industry that has a lot of baggage. So what I found out was my client came from the crisis management side of the equation. They actually dealt with, high profile people when things did not go well, when the shit's hit the fan. Well, a few details. One is you don't have time to get it wrong, and you don't have a second chance. If you're going to fix it, you got to do it fast and precisely. Well, what they ended up doing, they apply that crisis management expertise to everyday PR. And they, as a result, crushed it. And so we repositioned them as the anti-PR agency.
Yeah.
Just as an example, just as a very little example, but that gives you an idea of one way it can be tackled. So they're a PR firm, but they're not like anybody else.
But to take a step further too, if they can put that message succinctly in one sentence right up front, first thing they say, what
you want to know this? You want to know the succinct sentence that's in their sales presentation?
Yeah,
3 words, man. We hate PR. it wipes the line that divides the prospect with them. Like instantly, all of a sudden, they're all on the same page. Yeah, why we hate PR. It's like, bam, we're connected. It was brilliant.
Yeah. And that you know, I've heard of this methodology before. It's kind of like you're putting yourself in the same side of the table as the target, and
you got it.
you're on the
You
same
got
team.
it.
Yeah.
You got it right there.
Awesome.
Right
That's
there.
awesome. So now, many listeners out there, thousands of listeners out there checking us out, listening to this interview. What sort of bulletproof advice would you offer to some of those folks out there that really they're having branding issues, or maybe they're just looking for some help with marketing and trying to figure out what they need to do next? I mean, what sort of bulletproof advice would you offer them?
The thing you got to know is you have to come out of the gate and realize there's only two options. There is no big gray thing. It's like black and white, man. It's black and white. It goes like this. You're either adding to the noise or you're rising above the noise. Okay? That's it. If you're, we know we're different, but even though we sound like everybody else, and so that, no. If you sound like everybody else, you'll be seen as everybody else. You will negotiate, and as a result, on a very, very poor foundation of negotiation. So you're going to have to do it up based on price, not on value. And so, the thing is never use the language of the old to introduce the new. So in other words, what everyone else is talking about already, you talking about it doesn't make it fresh. Okay? It just doesn't. Your haircut isn't that good. Your suit isn't that good. Your grooming isn't that good to make your way that you say it, even though it sounds so much like everyone else, it's not enough to make it that much different. There are specific tools, there are specific ways to actually make it so that you actually know. You got to know the 3 phases of branding. You've got to know the 23 core differentiators that you can apply to each and every one of those. Look, one of my realtor clients, just by applying one freaking tool, closed the largest deal, like a single transaction, a $10 million. It was like a bang, $10 million sale, just from applying one of those tools right there. So the thing is that you need to know you're either adding to the noise or you're rising above the noise, and never use the language of the old to introduce the new. You've got to figure out how the hell are we not sounding like everybody else, smelling like everybody else, looking like everybody else. You got to work that out. And there are tools and exact ways to get there. And it's not through copycatting templates. Oh, this is a breakthrough template. Breakthrough and template is an oxymoron. Okay.
It's true, actually. Yeah. Excellent. All right, guys, listen, if you want to reach out to David, reach him via his website at risingabovethenoise.com. Hope you got some insight on how to build your personal brand, and definitely check out his stuff. All right. He's got great material on his website, and check out his book too. It's phenomenal stuff. All right. Thanks for listening in, guys, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Hey, Agostino here, and I would love to connect directly with you. Text the word books to 202-410-4202 to receive weekly book recommendations from me.